the Premier League manager of the season. It's coming to the end of the season, so now we are starting to discuss and debate who should be the manager of the season, the Premier League. Now, there are quite a few managers I want to nominate and discuss today, but before we get into that, please do smash the like button and do subscribe. But the first manager I want to talk about, Iraola, should be nominated for manager of the season. Now, we'll talk about him at Bournemouth, and I think the biggest part for me, for Iraola at Bournemouth, is it's applying context to his job that he's done at Bournemouth. Before the season started, a lot of people tipped Bournemouth to be in a relegation scrap, to even get relegated themselves. Iraola coming in after Gary O'Neill and a complete change of philosophy, a complete change of style, a complete change of the entire club from the top down, and the playing ways and the kind of philosophies and plans that they have going forward were ready to be changed. Everyone knew this was coming. We'd seen his time in Spain and the style of play. It was high press. It was explosive. It was not erratic, but it is kind of gung-ho football, really getting high up the pitch and winning the ball back and attacking teams directly and fast like that. And that's a massive change to the style we saw with Gary O'Neill, and the kind of a lot of things where you look at it like that and you look at it as a whole and you think, is it possible for Iraola to come into a club like Bournemouth, no disrespect, to change it and as fast as he has done? And a lot of people, including myself, didn't think he'd be able to do it. But Iraola has changed that entire philosophy. I can't say the word, philosophy. But at the start of the season, it didn't look like it was going well. His form was absolutely dreadful. There were a lot of people saying he's not cut out for it. He should be sacked. But then very fast it changed. And when I say it changed like that. And now the club find themselves in 11th spot, literally joint points with Brighton, which is absolutely mental when you put into perspective Brighton, bearing in mind how well De Zerbi's done with that side. I think Iraola has been absolutely incredible to get themselves to comfortably not be in a relegation battle with a new change of style of play, because if I'm honest, I bet you he's ahead of the plan. I bet you he had a 2-year plan. The first year was just about to stay up, and then the second year was to build on that and kind of move on forward, where we've seen players that have improved massively under the gaffer. We've seen Christie, we've seen Solanke, we've seen so many players really step up this season. I think it's all down to him. I think his changing play has been absolutely crazy. The improvements that we've seen for Bournemouth, and they're all down to him. I think he's an absolutely incredible manager and he's done a brilliant job. So for me, he's got to be the first nominee. Now I want to move on to Pep Guardiola. Now, does Pep Guardiola deserve a nominee? Does he deserve to be nominated? No. In my opinion, Pep Guardiola does not deserve to be in the mentions and in the shouts to become the Premier League manager of the season. Now, hear me out why I think this. I look at it as a whole and I look at what Pep Guardiola's done. Now, expectation, context, let's apply that to it. If we look at it as a whole and look at it from the start, you look at Pep Guardiola and Man City side. Did we expect them to be in a title race? Yes. So has he really under or overachieved? No, he's done exactly what's expected of him. So for me, Pep Guardiola does not deserve to be nominated, because I think that's the big thing with all of this. Now, you've got to look at kind of the assets that each manager has, the position that they're in, where they find themselves now and where they were expected to be. And Pep Guardiola has not over or underachieved. So he's just done his job. So personally, I don't think Pep Guardiola should be in the nominations. Now we'll move on to Mikel Arteta. I think Mikel Arteta deserves to be nominated. Now, whether he'll win it or not, I think completely depends on whether Arsenal win the Premier League. Now, if Arsenal win the Premier League, then don't get me wrong, I think he definitely has to be given the Premier League manager of this season of the award, because when you look at it again, you apply the context to it. I don't believe that Arsenal were favourites to win the league. If someone had said to you, Arsenal win the league this season, you'd go, wow, what a job. But if you told them Arsenal will be in a title race and they'll finish second, everyone will go, that's probably what we expected. So I think Arteta could literally win it, and it's on a knife edge. It's going into this final game of the season. If Arteta wins the league with Arsenal, then he deserves to be manager of the season. If they don't, then really, I don't even think he should be nominated. Yes, I understand the improvements that he's had with this team, and you looked at the defensive frailties last season, you see how he's built on that, and you see how strong they look now defensively. But really, applying context to the situation, has he under or overachieved if they finish second? No, he's just done his job. So I don't think that Arteta deserves a nomination. Now, we will move on to Gary O'Neill at the Wolves. Now, this for me is the most bizarre and mental job anyone has done this season. Considering when you think Lopetegui left just before the start of the season, Gary O'Neill kind of came in and a lot of people said, you don't want to go anywhere near the Wolves. You look at that squad, they didn't look like they had anything going forward. You looked at the squad and you thought, they're really going to struggle this season. They're going to get relegated, including myself. I have them predicted to finish 19th in the league. A lot of people had that. But Wolves currently find themselves in 13th spot, joint points with Crystal Palace, who have had such a really good season. Now, I think looking at it as a whole, as I said, applying context, no one expected Wolves to stay up. But the way they have done and the manner that they have done, they've had some big results recently. And throughout the season, I think Wolves have really performed, especially when you look at it and some of the injuries they've had. I think what Gary O'Neill's done with this side has been absolutely crazy. I think he's had a really good season. He's done a really good job. And yeah, I think he deserves a nomination. Now, I think you can kind of see what I'm kind of getting at with all of these kind of choices and these kind of decisions, the way I look at it. I think you've got to apply context. I think context is the most important part when you're discussing manager of the season, because really you're looking at a manager and seeing what impact has he had on this squad. What has he done? Where you look at it and you think, okay, then, how good a job has he done compared to what we all expected? Has he surprised? Has they surprised us? Have they gone above and beyond and really improved the team? That's what I kind of like to look at. Now, I want to talk about my next manager, Eddie Howe. Now, I believe Eddie Howe deserves a mention for manager of this season. Now, the reason why, again, you look at the context, a lot of people said, will they make Europe? Will they get a European spot? That was the question. A lot of people were thinking, I'm not sure. Well, Eddie Howe then, that was for context before the season. Now, looking on, Eddie Howe now, and you look at all the injuries they've had throughout the season, you look at kind of the run they've had and the fact that they went out of Champions League, and he's kind of balanced not only midweek football and the weekend football, and to still be in for a European spot, I think is an incredible job. Now, I know they could drop out of the European spots, but if they can get Europa League football, I think that's been an incredible season for Eddie Howe, and I think he definitely deserves to be nominated for manager of the season, just purely down to, again, applying context and the job he's done. I think he's gone above and beyond. No one really expected to at the time, because I think context changed quite fast this season for Newcastle with the amount of injuries they've had, etc. So I do believe that Eddie Howe deserves a nomination for manager of the season. Now, we will move on to any of the other managers. Now, I think Jurgen Klopp is another one. I think Jurgen Klopp definitely deserves a nomination. Now, I think that Jurgen Klopp definitely deserves a nomination for manager of the season. Now, again, if you apply the context and you look at it before the season, you looked at this and you kind of saw an overhaul with this squad. You looked at it and thought, there's a lot of changes here. Can Jurgen Klopp get it going? Can he flick that switch? Can he get that team playing for him? Because it's a lot of changes, as I said. You looked at it as a whole, and I thought, I'm not entirely sure. You look at the new midfield, then you talk about injuries and kind of then finding a new attacking three. Would it work? But Jurgen Klopp has changed his philosophy slightly this season, and if I'm honest, I think he's done a really good job. You look at it as a whole, he's kind of changed from the Jurgen press, that relentless attacking, pressing football, now to a bit more slower and a bit more methodical. Yes, it still is relentless, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same kind of energy, because he's kind of looked at it as a whole and thought, can I do this with this squad? And don't get me wrong, I think he's had a brilliant season. And not only that, I think, again, with injuries, the fact that he's blended in so many youngsters throughout the season, I think he's done a brilliant job. So Jurgen Klopp, for me, has to get nominated for manager of the season. Now, let's move on to some other managers. Now, my next one will be Unai Emery. I think Unai Emery, for me, I've left him till the end, because I think Unai Emery deserves to get manager of the season. I think he's done an absolutely incredible job at Aston Villa. To get top four, if it stays as it is an absolutely huge and incredible, magnificent job at Aston Villa. I think, again, if you look at it context, before the start of the season, they knew they got Europa Conference League. Can they carry it on? Because we talk about sides a lot when we've seen it happen in the past, when we've seen the likes of Swansea, we've seen Wigan, we've seen Birmingham City, sides getting it at Burnley. There's a lot of sides that have got in for midweek football, and it's, can they balance the midweek football alongside the Sunday games? It's difficult for a small squad like Aston Villa, but he has managed the team so well, and he's managed the playing minutes for a lot of the team. They've had such a good season. Yes, I know it kind of tailed off a bit in the fact that they didn't win the Europa Conference League, but to get to the semi-final like they did, I think they've had an incredible season. And to beat some of the sides that he has done in the fashion that they have done, like I think back to the Manchester City game at home earlier on in the season, I think it's been an incredible season. What a job Unai Emery's done. I think, again, applying context to it, looking back at Steven Gerrard, looking back at the fact that, yes, they've signed a few players, but the improvement has been absolutely incredible. They've gone from a relegation battle inside to Champions League football. Well, it looks like Champions League football if it all goes correctly. Actually, no, yeah, it looks like Champions League football. What a brilliant job he has done. So I think for me, the two that it's got to be between, my top two, will be Arteta and Unai Emery. Now, I think Arteta will win it, in my opinion. He deserves it from me if Arsenal win the Premier League. But if they finish second, then he just deserves a nomination and nothing else. And to be honest, there could be an argument that he doesn't even deserve a nomination. But Aston Villa, for me, Unai Emery will win it if Arteta doesn't get it. And then I think, as I said, the other managers have done absolutely brilliant. You likes of Jurgen Klopp, you likes of Eddie Howe, Iraola, Gary O'Neill. Now let me know if there's anybody in there that you feel like I have missed. Maybe an Ange Postecoglou shout, but I think if you've watched some of my other videos, you've seen why I wouldn't give it Ange Postecoglou, because I think context kind of changed throughout the season for them. But let me know, as I said, down in the comment section below, your thoughts for who deserves to be manager of the season in the Premier League. Thank you for watching. And as I say all the time, there'll be daily uploads going on this channel. So thank you for watching. BucketHatSam over and out. Thank you. Goodbye.